Maria's in-laws hated her from day one. When their son died, they saw their chance to humiliate her one last time. "Take the van," they said, pointing to the rust bucket in their yard. "It's all you deserve." They thought they were giving her garbage. They had no idea they had just made her the richest woman in the city. Stay with me, because what happened next is the most satisfying story of karma you'll ever hear. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button for more incredible stories of justice and hidden treasures. Maria Santos had endured 3 years of torture disguised as family dinners. Every Sunday, she sat at Eduardo's family table while his mother, Carmen, made snide comments about her humble background. His brothers, Ricardo and Felipe, would joke about how Eduardo had married down when he chose a girl from the favelas over the wealthy daughters they had lined up for him. But Eduardo loved Maria with a fierce devotion that shielded her from their cruelty. He was a successful engineer who had built a small fortune through hard work and smart investments. More importantly, he was a man who judged people by their character, not their bank accounts. "They'll come around," Eduardo would tell Maria after particularly brutal family gatherings. "Once they see how amazing you are, they'll love you like I do." Maria would smile and nod, but she knew the truth. Eduardo's family would never accept her. She was the poor girl who had stolen their golden boy, and they would never forgive her for it. Then on a rainy Tuesday morning, everything changed. Eduardo was driving to work when a drunk driver ran a red light and slammed into his car. He died instantly, taking Maria's heart and her only protection from his family's hatred with him. The funeral was a nightmare. Carmen barely acknowledged Maria's presence, speaking only to real family members about arrangements. The brothers whispered among themselves, already planning how to divide Eduardo's assets. Maria sat alone in the front row, drowning in grief, while Eduardo's family treated her like an unwelcome stranger. 3 days after the burial, Carmen called Maria with barely concealed glee in her voice. "We need to discuss Eduardo's affairs," she said coldly. "Come to the house tomorrow at 2 p.m. and bring anything of his you might have taken." Maria arrived at the imposing family mansion the next day, her heart heavy with dread. The entire clan had gathered: Carmen, the brothers, their wives, even Eduardo's cousin from São Paulo. They sat around the mahogany dining table like judges preparing to deliver a verdict. "Maria," Carmen began, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "we know this has been difficult for you, but now we need to be practical about Eduardo's estate." Ricardo pulled out a folder thick with documents. Eduardo left no will, which means his assets passed to his blood family. The house, the business investments, the bank accounts, they all belong to us now. Maria felt the room spinning. "But Eduardo always said—" "Eduardo said many things," Felipe interrupted. "But legally you have no claim to anything. You were married for only 3 years. We've been his family for 32. Carmen stood and walked to the window, her back to Maria. "However, we're not heartless. Eduardo loved you, misguided as that love may have been. So we've decided to give you something to remember him by." She turned with a cruel smile. "The van." Maria blinked in confusion. "What van?" "The old delivery van Eduardo bought when he first started his business," Ricardo said, barely suppressing laughter. "It's been sitting in our garage for 5 years, completely worthless, rusted, broken, probably doesn't even run. But it was Eduardo's first purchase, so it has sentimental value. The room erupted in barely contained snickers. Felipe's wife whispered something to her husband, and they both burst into laughter. "Where is it?" Maria asked quietly. "In the garage," Carmen said, gesturing dismissively. "You can take it whenever you want. Consider it our gift to you." More laughter rippled through the room. Maria stood slowly, her dignity intact despite their cruelty. "Thank you," she said simply. "I'll take it today." An hour later, Maria stood in the family's 3-car garage, staring at what looked like a monument to decay. The van was covered in rust, its white paint long faded to a sickly brown. The tires were flat, the windshield cracked, and weeds grew around its base where it had sat untouched for years. But as Maria walked around the vehicle, something caught her eye. Beneath the rust on the door handle, she glimpsed something that didn't look like metal. It looked almost golden. She borrowed a screwdriver from Eduardo's old toolbox and carefully scraped away a small section of rust near the handle. What she found underneath made her gasp. It wasn't metal. It was gold, actual, real gold. Her hands trembling, Maria scraped away more rust from different areas of the van. Every section revealed the same thing: solid gold beneath a carefully applied layer of rust and paint. Eduardo, brilliant Eduardo, had created the perfect hiding place. He had commissioned this van to be built from solid gold, then disguised it to look worthless. It had been sitting in his family's garage for 5 years, worth millions, while they walked past it every day, thinking it was junk. Maria pulled out her phone and called a specialist she found online. Dr. Antonio Ferreira was a metallurgist who specialized in precious metals authentication. She explained the situation, and he agreed to come immediately. 2 hours later, Dr. Ferreira completed his analysis. His face was pale with disbelief. "Madam," he said slowly, "this vehicle is constructed from approximately 2,800 kilograms of 24-karat gold. At current market prices, its material value alone exceeds 150 million reais." Maria sank into a nearby chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of Eduardo's gift. He had created this treasure and disguised it perfectly, knowing that if anything ever happened to him, his family would give it to Maria out of spite. But she wasn't finished yet. The next morning, Maria called Carmen. "Thank you so much for the van," Maria said sweetly. "It means the world to me." "I'm sure it does," Carmen replied sarcastically. "Did you manage to get that piece of junk running?" "Actually, I wanted to make sure you're completely comfortable with me taking it. I know how much family heirlooms can mean, and I don't want any regrets later." Carmen laughed harshly. "Regrets? Maria, that van is worthless trash. We're just happy to have it out of our garage. Take it with our blessing, and you're absolutely certain you don't want it back. Once I leave with it, I won't be returning it. Maria, please, we wouldn't take that rust bucket back if you paid us. It's yours, forever." "Perfect. Could you put that in writing? Just for legal purposes?" Carmen's greed made her eager to formalize Maria's acceptance of what she thought was worthless junk. Within an hour, she had drawn up and signed a document transferring full ownership of the van to Maria, with no conditions or possibility of reversal. That afternoon, Maria had the van carefully transported to a secure facility where specialists began the delicate process of removing the rust coating without damaging the gold beneath. 3 weeks later, local news stations reported an incredible discovery. A young widow had inherited what appeared to be the world's most valuable vehicle, a van constructed entirely from solid gold and worth over 150 million reais. Carmen was watering her roses when she saw the news report. The coffee cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the patio stones. "Ricardo!" she screamed. "Felipe, get out here now!" The brothers came running, and all three stood transfixed as the reporter described Maria's incredible inheritance. There, gleaming in the sunlight, was the van they had mocked and given away, now revealed as a masterpiece of hidden wealth. "We have to get it back," Ricardo said frantically. "We'll say there was a mistake, that we didn't understand what we were giving her." Carmen was already dialing her lawyer, but when she explained the situation, his response crushed her hopes. "Ma'am, you signed a legal document transferring ownership with no conditions. The transfer is binding and irreversible. That van now legally belongs to Mrs. Santos." "But we didn't know," Carmen wailed. "Ignorance of an item's value doesn't invalidate a legal transfer. I'm sorry, but there's nothing you can do." The family's humiliation was complete when reporters began asking questions about why Eduardo's widow had been left with only a single vehicle, while the rest of his estate was divided among his birth family. The public sympathy was entirely with Maria. Social media exploded with support for the young woman who had been treated so cruelly, only to discover that her late husband had provided for her in the most spectacular way possible. But Maria's story was far from over. Using her newfound wealth wisely, she established the Eduardo Santos Foundation, dedicated to helping young people from the favelas receive engineering education. She also hired Brazil's best lawyers to investigate Eduardo's other assets. What they discovered shocked everyone. Eduardo had been secretly funneling money out of the accounts his family thought they controlled. The business investments they had claimed were hollow shells. The valuable assets they had fought over were worthless. Eduardo had spent years quietly converting his entire fortune into gold and hiding it in plain sight, knowing that his family's greed and prejudice would lead them to give Maria exactly what she needed to claim her rightful inheritance. In the end, Maria inherited not just 150 million reais from the van, but Eduardo's entire fortune, nearly 300 million reais total. His family, who thought they had divided millions among themselves, discovered they had inherited nothing but debt and empty accounts. Carmen, Ricardo, and Felipe found themselves facing bankruptcy, while the woman they had tried to humiliate became one of Brazil's wealthiest philanthropists. The van, carefully restored to its golden glory, now sits in the Eduardo Santos Foundation headquarters. A plaque beside it reads, "Love finds a way. Eduardo Santos, 1985 a 2023. Dado en amor, recibido en justicia." Maria never remarried, but she never felt alone. Eduardo's love had provided for her in ways she was still discovering. And every time his family saw her name in the newspaper, funding scholarships, building schools, changing lives, they were reminded of the greatest mistake they ever made. They had tried to give her garbage and ended up giving her gold. They had tried to humiliate her and ended up humbling themselves. They had tried to erase her from Eduardo's life and ended up ensuring she would honor his memory forever. The moral of this story is powerful. Love prepares, greed blinds, and sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in the most unexpected places, waiting for those who deserve them to uncover their true worth. Justice has a way of revealing itself when we least expect it, often through the very actions of those who seek to deny it. We hope this incredible story of hidden treasure and perfect karma inspired you. What would you have done in Maria's situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story amazed you, hit that like button and share it with your family and friends. Let's spread the message that love always finds a way and karma never forgets an address. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and we'll see you in the next story.